Hi everyone, welcome to the Automobil Produktion Kongress here in Munich. My name is Christopher Ludwig, Chief Content Officer of AMS, working closely with our partners here, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Dr. Nikolaides, who's the Senior Vice President for Production Network, Supply Chain Management and Logistics at the BMW Group. Thank you so much for joining us. Just had a great presentation looking at automation in logistics, humanoid opportunities, intralogistics, as well as wider digitalization and the iFactory at BMW. Dr. Nikolaides, can you tell our audience about the advances you're making in intralogistic automation, because you've really taken some steps forward at a number of your plants. And then I also want to touch on that very cool robot that we saw on screen there. But let's start with the intralogistics automation. What are the key advances you've been making there?
So a couple of years ago, we already learned that in order to implement our technology open approach, where we produce each and every drivetrain on our assembly lines, we need to have smart and intelligent autonomous transport systems. And we founded a company called Idealworks, developing both the steering system, so to say the brain for our logistic system, and the hardware. And we already integrated more of 600 of these smart transport robots into our logistic systems. And depending on the use case, we can also implement autonomous forklifts and route trains into that system. And I think that is really a step forward into having flexibility to enable our strategic approach.
And that is really key, how that's enabled flexibility. Now, we also saw some really exciting advances and with humanoid robots, where you have a pilot running in Spartanburg together with Figure. What are some of the potential use cases you see? What is the potential you see of this technology, particularly when it comes to production and logistics?
So I think that we are in an early phase.
Yeah.
And this is really cool because we always embrace technology within BMW, and this is true for our products, but also for our production and logistics systems. So what happens there in the world is now you combine robotics, which we know very well from body shop production, for example, with artificial intelligence. And if you combine these and you take that as a humanoid robot, it is left to your imagination what might happen there. But I think we have to learn, but that is something where we really are interested in learning what is going on and what the potentials are. And we have pilot cases where these things are already integrated in our production cycles.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be very exciting to track. When we think about AI use cases in logistics, supply chain, and production, I mean, the fuel of AI is data. And you have no shortage of data in your supply chain and production, but sometimes it's quite disjointed and siloed. What steps have you taken to start to better integrate and sort of scale this data at BMW?
So that is something that we learned along the journey towards artificial intelligence. And we started that years ago. You have to standardize your data. You have to make it available over all production plants, over the different silos, and we call that the data lake. And if you have that, only if you have that, then you might think about use cases which you just saw.
We've talked about humanoids, we've talked about intralogistics, and we talked about AI. Is there other emerging technology that you see as very exciting, or what you expect to help advance your logistics and supply chain even further?
I think it's a combination of everything you saw. I think I always think about artificial intelligence being the brain, and then smart robotics, automation, smart transport systems being the hardware. And if you combine that, you can imagine a lot of things that might happen.
Yeah. So big potential. Finally, we can't quite escape what's happening. Everyone will have seen the news, the trade war, which is ongoing, lots of uncertainty and hitting supply chain and logistics. Now, over the years, we've spoken about things like local for local. We've talked about the fact that free trade was already not as open as it has been. What are some of the important ways and steps that you're taking to deal with this uncertainty, obviously, which we can't predict the outcome of, across your production network?
So first and most important, we as BMW, having a global footprint, having a global supply chain, we believe that in the end we have to come to a solution where we have as free as possible trade across borders. That's the reason why we made the suggestion to reduce the customs. That is something which we are convinced should be the outcome in the end, and I'm still confident that we will reach that at some point. Until we get there, everything we discussed over the last years stays true, and that's a good thing. So flexibility is key. So you have to be able to reallocate your production globally. You have to have data transparency, because that is the basis for taking these decisions. They have to be real time, and you have to be fast. And that is how we handle that situation as of today, always having in mind where we want to go, and I'm convinced we have to be as an economy worldwide.
Indeed, it accelerates all those points, and I would just conclude by saying we've also talked a lot about how those feed into strategic decision making and the role that visibility plays, and clearly that accelerates that strategic decision making in the production network. Dr. Nikolaides, thank you so much for joining us here at the Automobil Produktion Kongress, and look out for more on our websites and LinkedIn. Thanks so much for following us.
Thank you very much.